Welcome to this third session of the sixth Adhyaya of Sri Bhagavad Gita. We start with gratitude towards the Lord and the Guru Parampara through which this knowledge is preserved and passed on from generations. I pay my respects to my Puja Guruma, Guruji, with whose grace I am able to learn these scriptures and share this understanding with you. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Vedas Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we are currently doing the sixth Adhyaya, which is the Dhyana Yoga. And for Dhyana Yoga, Lord Krishna talks about very beautiful things about Dhyana, how it can be achieved by doing Atma Sanyama Yoga, because Dhyana has to be done by our own self and we have to go deep within. We don't have to do anything outside, we have to go more inside. And that's why Dhyana requires a lot of things which we need to tackle before we can actually get into this meditation. Shuchau Deshe Pratishtapya, where we have to sit in a clean place, in a silent, isolated place. We have to do Ekagra Mana. Focusing of the mind is very important. The posture is so important. Kaya, Shriya, the Shira, Griva, everything should be in one line. And the purpose of doing Dhyana is to achieve the eternal peace, to have sameness, have this Samadhi Avastha. And we have to take care of all our Ahara, Vichara, Kartavya, Karma, Cheshta, everything has to be well controlled to do Dhyana. And we have to reach to the stage of the mind control, which is Viniyatam Chittam. The mind is completely under control with, and that is, likened to the lighted lamp which is there without much air, how it remains steady. So that is the level which we have to reach. And finally the goal of Sukham Atyantikam. We achieve the eternal bliss, which is the final result of the Dhyana. So in the last three shlokas, Lord Krishna talked about Niruddham Chittam, Chitta Niruddha, Chitta Nirodha, how to control the mind. And if we develop this, he says, and then Yattat Sukham Atyantikam, when we get this, we get the eternal peace, eternal Sukha, Atyantika Sukha, and Yam Labdhvacha Param Labham. It's the biggest labha, isse bada koi labh nahi hai. Guruna api dukhena na vichalyate. The biggest miseries are taken care of when we reach this state. So what is that state? That is the question. Lord Krishna talks, this is the state. So in the 23rd shloka he says, Tam vidyat dukkha sanyoga viyogam yoga sangnitam sanishchayena yoktavyo yogo nirvinna chetasa. So what is that yoga? And here, that is something that we need to know, because that is, tam vidyat. He says you should know this. And what is that we should know? Yoga Sangnitam, yoga as yoga. Yoga Sangnitam. Yoga, as you know, is the union with the Lord, union with, communion with the God is considered to be yoga. And yoga is the path, actually. It is a yoga marga or yoga path through which, this is a journey through which we can achieve that communion. So it is used in both the terminologies as a journey and as a goal, yoga. So what is that? What is this that you should know as yoga? He says, Dukkha Sanyoga Viyogam is yoga. So how do we understand this? On one side he says yoga, and the other side he says Viyoga of Dukkha Sanyoga is yoga. So how to understand this? So Viyoga means taking away. Viyoga means going away. Yoga means getting together or combining or joining is yoga. And Dukkha Sanyoga means all our miseries with which we are so badly attached. So this is the Dukkha Sanyoga. And uska jo Viyoga, that getting away from us, that is yoga. That's what he says. So we should understand it a little bit more. And how we take care of this? So we have to do by Nishchayena Yoktavyo, by our firm resolve, our using of our intellect with the firm Dhriti Shakti or the Buddhya Dhriti Bruhitaya. Already Bhagavan Shri Krishna has already said that this is my duty, this is what I need to do. And he says Anirvinna Chetasa. How do we achieve this yoga? We have to achieve this by anirvinna chetasa. Nirvinna means laziness or boredom. We don't feel like doing it, or we are bored of doing it. Anirvinna means without any boredom, without any laziness, means always bubbling with enthusiasm. We should do, and we should make it like a habit for us in our life. It should be inculcated as a part of our life. Only then we can reach our goal. And so in a nutshell, meditation must be done with a firm resolution, resolve that we want to get into this path, and with a lot of enthusiasm and patience. So to understand Jiva Swarupa and Atma Swarupa, how is it different? We have to understand this, that the Jiva always feels that he has the dukkha. He feels that I am dukhi, but basically dukh is not part of the Jiva Swarupa, because Jiva Swarupa is Atma Swarupa. Then it is not different. And dukh, Bhagavan already is said in one of the previous shlokas that dukh is not created by Prabhu or Paramatma. It is created by the Jiva because of his attachments, because of his raga, dvesha. And he creates this samsara and feels that I am dukhi, I am part of this samsara, and that's how we feel that dukkha or the miseries. So dukkha is actually in our mind, it is in our intellect, this is what we feel, it is in our anatma. As it is said, it is not part of Atma. Atma is Sukha Swarupa. Atma, there is no dukkha at all. There is not a single trace of dukkha in the Atma. But because of this tadatmya, the Atma and Anatma, they get mixed. Tat Atma, that is the misidentification. We are the Atma, but we feel that we are all this Anatma also along with it. Or Anatma is our main feeling, and then we feel that Anatma and Atma are mixed in us. So that's why we see we see this misidentification, and that creates all these illusion, all these bhranti, all these, as if something that sometimes we see dirt on the mirror and then we think that it is on our face. But it's an illusion, because the dirt is there on the mirror, it's not on our face. So this is the kind of an illusion. The dukkha sanyoga is also an illusion, and this illusion has to be given up. So this is the viyoga. If we give up this dukkha sanyoga, which is an illusion, that itself is yoga. That is what Lord Krishna says here. So this giving up is something like breaking the partition. So our Guruji explains that there is a room which is just one, but we create a partition and divide this room into two parts. One is Jiva, one is Ishvara or Brahma. But essentially both of them are same, and this partition is nothing but avidya. It is the ignorance which creates its partition. So once this partition is taken away, it's the same and there is no difference, and this is what is yoga. So this union is by taking away this partition, it is by taking away this illusion of dukkha sayoga, and we have to accept the reality. The truth is that Atma has no is only Sukha Swarupa, has no dukkha, and all the dukkha are part of Anatma. So if we understand this complete distinction and we believe that Jiva, the main Swarupa of the Jiva is Atma, it is not Anatma, then we can understand this and accept this reality. So spiritual journey is essentially about changing our habits, our old impressions of the sanskaras which we have had because of a lot of karma that we have done in this life, and a lot of sanskaras which we have carried from our previous births also, which are lying within us, sometimes in a dormant state, in a sushupta avastha. So these sanskaras have to be converted from old to the new sanskaras, and that is a part of the journey. And on this journey there is nothing like failure, there is only progress. And God is going to say, Bhagavan Krishna is going to say in the coming shlokas, in the final part of the fourth session, you will see that there is nothing goes in vain on this path. Whatever you do is going to benefit you in some or the other life, some other way, because that creates a sanskara and stays with you. So every opportunity is a learning opportunity, and we have to change our vision, our understanding, because that is ultimately the sadhana. And our attitude is very important. If we have a positive attitude, when a half glass is full, we should see that half glass is full rather than seeing that the half is empty. So that kind of positive attitude helping us to progress on this path is very, very important. And this is the path which takes a lot of time. We need to have a lot of patience. We shouldn't lose hope while we are on the way. And we should be anirvinna chetasa, full of enthusiasm rather than losing hope. And we should not compare ourselves with anybody else on this path, because everybody is at a different level of their own journey. And when somebody's prarabdha or karma gets activated, or some samskaras get activated, and they progress rapidly on this journey, nobody can know. And that's why everybody's liking, their suitability, their adhikaritva is different. Kaunsa sadhan, somebody is more suitable for karma, somebody is more inclined for bhakti, somebody is more made for, carved out for the dhyana yoga. So everybody's inclination is different. So there should not be any competition or comparison on this adhyatmic sadhana path. In the 24th shloka, Lord Krishna says, Sankalpa prabhavan kaman styaktva sarvana sheshataha manasaivendriya gramam viniyamya satam samantataha. So here, the first step on the dhyana is Indriya Sanyam. Indriyas, our senses, are the first point of contact with our external environment, the outer world. Because they come in contact with the objects. Chakshu will see the rupa grahanam. Our ears will listen to the words which are spoken. Our sense of smell will, sense of touch, sense of our taste. All these, they grahana the outer objects or vishayas. So that is the first step that we have to control for going into dhyana. Sankalpa prabhavan kaman. The desires which arise out of the sankalpa. Sankalpa is a samyak kalpana. A kalpana or a kind of imagination in our mind that this will give me some happiness, this will make me happy, or this will be useful to me. So that is a kind of samyak kalpana that we do. And this is what happens when we see advertisements and then we feel, oh, I need this, I should have this. So this is the kind of samyak kalpana that we do, and then this creates the desire. This creates the want, that I want this thing. But the first thing is that it will make me happy. That is a samyak kalpana. Tyaktva sarvana sheshataha means this needs to be renounced completely, because sankalpa is the root cause or the mula of all the desires. And that's why one has to try to control the desires at this stage of samyak kalpana. Sarvan means all these samyak kalpana, all the ichhas, all the desires need to be renounced out of the mind. Asheshata, without leaving behind any. We have to manasa. How do we renounce these desires? Manasa indriya gram vinayamya sanyata samantata means by mind. We have to do it by the mind. The indriyas have to be controlled by the mind. And properly controlling all these indriya gramam. Indriya grama is a group, a samu of indriya, 5 jnanendriyas and 5 karmendriyas. Total 10 indriyas we have. So all these have to be controlled samantataha from all the sides, because they are so active, they are so alert. They have to be controlled. So just to understand with the 5 fingers, we can understand that this is the indriya which is in contact with the outer world, everything around. The second is this is the vishaya, which is the outer world. This is the indriya through which we grahana or understand all the vishaya or outer objects. That is the mana. It's the middle finger, the tallest one, the most powerful one. This is the buddhi or the intellect through which we can control the mind, and this is the atma or the Satchidananda or Brahma Swarupa. That is our soul, our self, the true self, which is completely separate from all these anatma. That is how we can understand these are the 5 things. So the indriya have to be controlled so that it does not go into this vishaya or the objects, and that has to be done by the mind. Otherwise, what can happen is if the indriyas are very powerful, it will take the mind outside. But if the buddhi is powerful, then it will control the mana. So that is what we will come to. So we should try and understand how sankalpas or shobhanadhyas happen, samyak kalpana, and we should ask the question tat kim means so what? If I do this desire happens, so what? What will happen? If I have a lot of desires to get a lot of wealth, benefit, praise, a long life, and then I should ask the question, so what? What will happen if I have all this? What will happen? And we keep begging for pieces of happiness, because the outer world gives us happiness only in pieces. That doesn't remain for a longer period of time. Bhagavan already said that, adhyantavantaha natyeshu ramata buddhaha. All these outer bahya, jo sukha, is all in pieces. It is tukda of happiness. It is not for a long time. So we must make the best use of our time to scrutinize our desires and find out which one are really essential. We should accept them, and the ones which are not essential, we should reject them. And after knowing our own self, the end, the full stop to this question of Tat Kim will happen, and that is the final goal for all of us. And this is a beautiful shloka, the 25th one. Shanaihi shanairuparameh buddhya dhruti gruhitaya atma sanstham manah krutva na kinchidapi chintayet. So here Bhagavan says Shanai Shanai Uparame. Progress happens very, very slowly, and we have to keep trying on this path. Nothing happens immediately, in a fraction of a time, or very quickly here on this path. Shanai Shanai Uparame. Slowly we have to withdraw our mind. Mind is already full of old sanskaras, and it is going to, the indriyas are going to go out. They are all bahirmukhas, and mind is also going to go out along with it, because it wants these sensual pleasures. And that's how the control of the mind is by the buddhi. Buddhya dhruti gruhitaya. What kind of buddhi? You need a very firmly established intellect, buddhi. Buddhi's calm is to do all this, decision-making power is with the buddhi. But that has to be firm. Dhruti means it has to be a firm. It should be able to control the force of the emotions, of the mind, and the indriya shakti also. So this is what we have to do. We have to keep the mind atma sanstham manah krutva, and the mind has to be completely taken out from all the outer indriya, vishaya, and it has to be established in the atma. So that is what we need to do. It must be completely atma sanstham manah krutva. The mind has to be withdrawn, shanai shanai uparamed, and then it has to be established in the atma sanstham. So engrossed in the consciousness. And nakinchidapi chintayet means without thinking of anything else, we should remain firmly established in this Atma Tattva. Shanai Shanai Uparamet means we have to go very slow, very steady on this path. Nothing happens very quickly. Mind is already very, very unsteady, chanchal. It keeps wandering, and that's why it needs to be trained. And the training of the mind is as an essential part of this sadhana, because it's only with this body and this mind that we have to understand our Atma Swarupa. There is no other way. These are the best instruments, the best sadhana for us, and that's why they have to be cultivated in a way that they can be quiet, they can be steady, they can be more introvert, and they can understand this Sukshma Atma Tattva. So the journey, the entire spiritual journey is for the maturity of this mind, and this happens very, very slowly. It needs to be constantly pursued. The mind has to be understood that it is separate from our self, and that's why once we understand that the mind and the self are separate, then we can actually have a conversation with our mind. And that's something called an inner talk. We can talk to the mind and try to explain the mind, try to understand, make sure, treat the mind like a child. Just like our self is a mother and the mind is a child, with understanding, samjhavat, manavat se kaam lena padta hai. Too much of pressure on the mind doesn't work on the mind, because it then remains, it again fires like a spring. That's why with this kind of an understanding, the mind needs to be trained. Just like we train the dolphin, where the dolphin does a right trick, then the trainer gives something, it puts in his mouth. Similarly, whenever the mind does something good, helps us, then we should try to appreciate the mind rather than punishing the mind. So this is how the mind should be trained properly, and this requires great amount of effort, requires constant awareness about how mind is working, what are the thoughts, what it is doing, what are the feelings that arise in the mind, what are the vruttis, what are the emotions coming in, what are the virtues, what are the vices in our mind. All these we should be aware about it, and any success on this path comes with constant efforts and time, and spiritual journey needs that the mind must be steady and peaceful. Unless otherwise, there is no way we can progress on the spiritual path, because all this journey has to be done with our own mind, and we have to take it inside, and that has to be first cultivated. So the mind cultivation, the indriya sanyama, all these are the primary path before we get onto the meditation and before we understand this jnana, because the first step is the shravana. With the shravana, we understand from the scriptures, from the guru, we understand what is the reality of this world. And then with manana, we have to clear all the doubts. And then we come to nididhyasana, the dhyana, Vedantic meditation, through which we internalize this knowledge. Whatever we have heard during shravana, we have to assimilate inside us, and then that becomes a jnana or a aparoksha anubhava, or becomes the part of the enlightenment. So that is the entire journey. Atma Sanstham Manah Krutva means the mind has to be steadied in the Atma or in the Paramatma, in the God. And this has to be done by the help of our Viveka Shakti, our discriminative intellect, that is our Buddhi, which our Vichar Shakti, which our understanding. We have to do this. And this Viveka in Vedanta is considered that there are many ways we can do this Viveka. The main Viveka is called the Atma Anatma Viveka. And this in Vedanta can be done with many processes. This is called Shariratraya Viveka, Avasthatraya, Sakshi Viveka, Jada Chetana Viveka, Laya Prakriya, that is given in Kathopanishada. So there are many ways we can understand this, and we'll just take few examples to understand how this is given in the Vedanta. So the idea is that in the meditation, what do we need to do? The process of meditation is to change my habits, my understanding, my sanskaras about who I am. That is the Vedantic meditation or Nididhyasana that Lord Krishna talks about in this Adhyaya. So basically, as a person, I understand I am this person. I understand that I am this body, this Indriya, senses, the mind, intellect, my ego, my pride, along with my life. Because I also believe that I am not a Jad person. I am a living human being. That's why Chetan is also my part. It is inside me, and I am this body, mind, soul complex. So that is Karya Karana Sanghata. That is what I understand as a Jiva. So in Vedanta, it uses this prakriya of neti. No, not this. No, not this. No, I am not my body. Why I am not my body? Because I can see my body. I say this is my body. So I and my body are separate. And this is the prakriya that we use even in the dhyana to understand that neti. No, I am not my body. Similarly, indriya. I can see my indriya. I can see how it goes out. I can see all my thoughts. So I'm not my mind. My thoughts are different from my mind. I can talk to my mind. I can, have a self-talk. So I'm not my mind. There are several ways we can understand how I'm taking the decisions. Wow, how I know that in my buddhi there are some gnana, some is agnana, some ignorance is there. I understand all this, and that's why I am not my buddhi. I am not my intellect. So what remains is Chetan Atma. That is what remains, and that is what I am. So we have to reach to this. After doing neti, not this, no, not this, no, not this. And these are some prakriyas. There are several ways we can do this in meditation. And we have to reach up to Atma or the pure consciousness. So I am not this Anatma. I am only pure Atma, pure consciousness. So I have to see everything as a Sakshi Swarupa. I am the awareness. I am the seer. I am the subject. I am not the object. All these are the objects. The Sharira, Mana, Indriya, Buddhi, all are the objects. I am the subject. I am the seer of all these objects. So I have to reach, the first step is to reach up to the Sakshi. And then from Sakshi, I have to understand that I am not just the soul, but similarly, every person has a Sakshi. Every person has a Sakshi in him. There is a soul. And all these souls are not separate. There is only one Atma. So there is only one soul. Atma or Chaitanya are the same. There is no difference. So I have to understand that this is a Sarva Vyapaka. So it is a ever omnipresent Atma. It is the same Atma which is omnipresent, and that same Atma is part of me also. I am not separate from that Atma. So this is the way we have to understand the Aikya. So this is a gradual process that happens in meditation. So let us just take an example. Guruma has given this example of Avasthatraya Shakshi as to understand how these three states we perceive, we experience daily, day in and out, every day in our life, and how that can help us to understand this, Sakshi, Bhavana or the Atma, Anatma, Viveka. So Jagrat is the waking state, and the senses, as we know, the Indriya are awake. And that's how they can see the objects, they can listen to the objects. Indriya are active. And all the activities in the Jagrat Avastha, in the waking state, happens in our gross body or the Stula Sharira. And I identify myself as the body, mind, intellect and the soul. Now what happens when we go to the dream state? The body goes to sleep. Along with this, the Indriyas also go to sleep. Right? Indriyas are not active because we cannot see, we cannot hear during the sleep. And I am identified with my mind because in the dream state, a dream is created in my mind. It is not actually there. It is not the reality. It's a creation in my own mind. So mind is active. Indriyas are asleep, the Sthula Sharira is asleep, and we create a dream state. And this is separate from the Sthula Sharira, because Sthula Sharira is already lying, it is sleeping, it is not there, it is sleeping. So I am the Sakshi. What I am seeing the dream, who am I? If I am seeing the dream, I am there. But the Sthula Sharira is not there. So it clearly makes me understand that I am not the Sthula Sharira, I am not the gross body. This dream state can make me understand definitely I am not the Sthula Sharira, because I am there in my dream state and the Sthula Sharira is not there at that time. So this awareness, and I can also understand that awake also can be a dream. Similarly, just like a dream state, as I wake up and understand, oh, it was a dream, it was not true, it looked like a reality. Similarly, the awake state also can be like a dream. That possibility is there, which Vedanta says, Jagat Mithya. How to understand this? That is by the example of this dream state. So I understand that I am the Sakshi, I am the awareness of all these three states that are passing daily in front of me every day. From the waking, I go to the dream state. From the dream state, then the next step is to go to the Sushupti or the deep sleep stage. Now in the deep sleep stage, what happens is that I leave my Sukshma Sharira also. The Mana also is Laya. Man is also not there. Indra is not there. Sthula Sharira is already not there. Nothing is working. And in my deep sleep, I am there, because when I wake up, I say, oh, I had a wonderful sleep. I had 6 hours, I didn't feel how it, in a flicker of a moment, it passed off. So that shows that I was there at that time. I have experienced that sleep. But this, I didn't know how the time went off. Flies in this dreams, in this deep sleep. So it means that this is Ajnana. So there is this, what is called as a Karana Sharira, which is the Ajnana, which is there. And we are very close to our Swarup at that time, but this is not out of Jnana. It is out of Ajnana that we go close to our Swarupa or the Atma. And this is separate from the Sukshma Sharira, this dream state, because Sukshma Sharira is also Laya. It is not working, it is not there, it is not present. Mana, Buddhi, Chitta, Ahankara, everything is gone. There is nothing is there. So, but I am there. So that means I am Sakshi to this Sukshma Sharira, and that means I am not the Sukshma Sharira. So all these are the prakriya or the processes how we can use to understand that I am not this Sthula Sharira, I am not the Sukshma Sharira, I am not this gross body, not the mind, not the intellect, but I am the Atma. So in meditation during Dhanabhyas, what we need to do, one is we have to understand that I am the Sakshi. First, I am the awareness of all the three states. These three states, they daily come and go, they are anitya. Waking state comes, goes, I go into the dream state, then I go into the, but I am there. In all these three states, I am the one who is the constant, nitya, and I am unchanged. But all these three states keep changing in front of me. So this is the understanding that we have to get. That is the first step, which is called the Sakshi. We have to reach till the Sakshi Chaitanya, Sakshi Atma. In this self, I need to steady my mind in the Sakshi, and I have to be an observer, an aware person, be seer of all these three states, all these three shariras, all these pancha kosha, sapta dhatu, all these different prakriyas which are given. And then I have to do Atma Sanstha Mana Krutva, steady my mind into the Atma, in this Atma, feel this inner peace, the bliss that is within, and without thinking of anything else, no thoughts, outer thoughts, nothing should come in that just serenity, eternal bliss should just flow. And the goal is to reach to the Samadhi Avastha, the Sakshatkar or the enlightenment, where there is nothing like the seer and the seen, they all merge. Dhyata, Dhyana and Dhyaya, everything becomes one in the Samadhi Avastha, that is the Sakshatkar, which is the climax of the meditation, where the person who is the meditator already forgets about his body, mind, everything, and he merges into the eternal consciousness. So that is what is the Sakshatkar. Yato yato nischarati manaschanchala mastiram tatastato niyam yaitata atmanyeva vasham naye. So when the mind starts wandering here and there, which is very common, our own experience shows that this is very common. Whenever we sit for meditation and close our eyes, the mind starts wandering. There are some thoughts which come in again and again, and this is very, very common experience for all of us, most of us. And Manah chanchalam asthiram. My mind is very, very agile. It is very unsteady. It just keeps wandering from one place to the other like a monkey. And that's why mind is also compared to a monkey. Keeps moving from one branch to the other. So, yata nischarati. For whatever reason it goes out. All its previous sanskaras, impressions of the past which it has, all during the day, which all the interactions, experiences that we had, some conversations, some experiences, all these are part of us and that becomes active during this meditation. And tata niyamyata. From there we have to get hold of it and get it back. Our mind, we have to get it back. Atmani eva pasham nayet, and put it back in the Atma. So wherever the mind goes, for whatever reason it goes, we have to get hold of it. And initially it has to be prayatna purvak, it has to be with efforts, because here the mind has to develop new kind of sanskaras and this has to be trained, because mind is not trained in that way, because we keep moving from one object to the other when we work with the mind, and that's why we have to train our mind and do whatever we need to do, and we have to keep doing it again and again, satatam. All these activities have to be continued, nirantara and satata. Only then we can achieve progress in meditation. So what are the obstacles to meditation? Dhyana vikshepa hetu. There are many. Calm, desires, a lot of our ambitions, a lot of incompleteness that we have within inspires us to do some sankalpa, desires, ichcha, to achieve something. And that's why we have to understand that we should make divisions of the time. This is the dhyana kala. This is not the time to think. And during our routine activities, we should spare a little time to think, to plan, and to do all the thinking activities. So we have to explain our mind and understand that there should be some compartmentalization of our time, and explain to mind that this is, and sometimes when we start meditation, we can even, request the mind to remain quiet, help us to enter into this state of meditation, and we can do thinking process at some later time. Anger. Some anger on the previous day, previous time, we had become angry on somebody, will come up or spring back during the time of meditation. That's why it's better to forget and forgive. This is something that we need to learn. Acceptance of all situations rather than feeling that nahi mere ko yahi karna hai, this is what I want to do, I have to do this, I want to do this. This kind of very firm obsessions, jid, duragra, and compulsions or obstinacy of the mind, it creates a lot of problems for us and creates difficulties for going into dhyana. Bhaya, fears of all the different types, of some disasters, of some disease, of death, fear of a lot of diseases, a lot of things, some natural disasters or some attachment to loved ones or getting away from the loved ones. So a lot of factors can cause a lot of fears in our mind, and this is important because this will not help us to go into meditation, and that's why we have to have the faith in the Lord, unwavering faith in the Lord, that the Lord is with me, He will help me at every step of my life, wherever He will be holding His hands, and He has done it in the past for so many occasions. He has helped me out of major disasters, so He will be always with me. So this kind of utmost faith, unwavering faith we should have in the Lord. Too much of udvega, anxieties of the future, what will happen, creating major things out of minor things. Most of the incidences that happen in our day-to-day life with our spouse, with our family, with our colleagues or problems are minor problems, but they are blown out of proportion. They are major on minor things. A lot of stress, chinta about useless things, it does not help us. We should just think, plan as much as is needed and have faith that it will be done rather than unnecessarily worrying. Nirasha or dejection of accepting failures, happening, negative thinking, it's not healthy for us. We have to understand and accept the failures, learn from the mistakes and keep moving on. Deenata or helplessness. A seeker may feel that no, this is too much, I cannot do it, meditation is not for me. These are the helplessness or helpless statements that seekers should not make, because we can do if we desire firmly, then we can definitely do it and we can go deep into meditation. Karya bahulya means too much of work. During the daytime, doing too many activities, too many projects, running around and then getting fatigued, having a good sleep and then not waking up for meditation is something which is very common amongst people. too much of vikalpa, a lot of undecided mind. We may have some occasion, some function, some projects coming up where we have not taken a few decisions. So those kind of things will come up in the mind when we sit for meditation. So it's better that these activities should be done at a separate time, and if it is to be done, it should be done before meditation or after meditation rather than thinking about these during the meditation. Laya and drowsiness during the meditation is also a big vikshepa, and one have to sambodhana our mind and awaken them. Go have some splashes on your, some water on your, or take a bath and come back, do meditation. Then this drowsiness or sleepiness will go away. Prashanta manasam yenam yoginam sukhamuttamam upaiti shantarajasam brahmabhutam kalmasham. So what is the benefit or the phala of the meditation? Bhagavan Krishna talks about this. Yoginam, yogi who does engage in meditation, reaches the Atma Swarupa by negating his anatmakara vritti. So that is what we have to do in dhyana. Negate our anatmakara vritti, virodha, and then we have to svikar or accept the atmakara vritti. Brahma bhutam, one who knows, has known or become one with the Brahma. Shantarajasam, achieves the eternal peace, complete peace, because the Raja gets nivrutta, and that's why we achieve the Sata or Sattva or the Shanta, peaceful eternity. Akalmasham, it destroys all the impurities or papa. And Uttamam Sukham Upaiti, we achieve the eternal bliss, which is Swadhina, which is not dependent on anybody else. We can have it inside us. We do have it, and we have to understand, we have to feel that peace. Prashanta Manasam, in which the mind and the senses are completely quiet, which is devoid of any kind of dukkha. So this is the kind of benefit that the meditation gives us. It helps us to achieve our own inner peace of mind. It destroys all the impurities and gives us the eternal peace. Yunjan nevam sadatmanam yogi vigata kalmashaha sukhena brahma sansparsham atyantam sukhamashnute. So the yogi who makes all efforts to reach the goal with self-control in this way, means following all the previously given suggestions by Lord Krishna about how meditation should be done, chitta, mana, nigra, indriya, sanyama, how he sits, how he posture, how he goes to the next level. Sada Atmanam Yunjam, ever constantly trying to be one with the Atma. Spiritual journey should, Guru Maharaj tells us often that it's a full-time job. Our daily life has to become like an adhyatma. It cannot be just like a hobby. If it is a hobby, it will not allow us to progress. It has to become a part of our life. Then there can be progress in the spiritual journey. The Shravana must be regular. Manana must be regular. Only if this is there, then we can, by utilizing all this, we can enter into the dhyana. And then all these sanskaras that are there, we should use it in our day-to-day life, during our karma, during our actions and our activities. And that's how the spiritual journey and our spiritual life and our the normal life becomes one. So unless this becomes one, then otherwise the spirituality will be separate. We hear 1 hour about spirituality in a day, or read something, and for the rest 23 hours we live our life differently. So that is not the ideal situation. We have to integrate both these lives and merge both these lives and make it one life. Vigata kalmashaha means whose impurities of the mind are all destroyed and antakarana becomes shuddha. Atyantam sukham ashnute. So he achieves the eternal bliss that is there within by Brahma sansparsham, by communion with our supreme divinity, Brahma sparsha. We can achieve this eternal bliss. And God says, Shri Krishna says, this happens sukhena. It happens very easily, or it happens very happily. It is, there is no dependence on anyone. And he says, this Brahma sansparsham for him, according to the Lord, it happens very easily. So the question comes in Adhyatma sadhana, whether it is a simple or it is a difficult sadhana, whether it is a sukhada or a dukhada, whether it gives pleasure or it is painful, the spiritual path. And Bhagavan Shri Krishna also in different parts of Gita, he talks little bit contradictory. In some ways he says, it is very durlabha, very few people can reach me. And in some places he says sukhena, here he says sukhena, you can achieve Brahma sansparsham, atyantam sukham. It is very easily, very happily you can achieve this. So that question comes whether some of the saints, yogis may say that it is not difficult sadhana. For people like us, regular aspirants, it will look like a very difficult sadhana, very long journey. So what is it actually? So I need to look at myself because I am the center of this sadhana, and whatever problems that happen which does not allow me to progress on this path are because of the obstacles that have been created. They are all part of me that I need to identify. And I have to light up my own life. Means I have to look for all these obstacles and get over these obstacles. And I have to be my own lamp. Nobody else can become our lamp. Of course, there can be help, guidance from our guru or, saha adhyayis, they can help us. But we have to walk on this path with a very firm resolution so that the road gradually opens up as we walk. For people who are not prepared for this commitment that is needed on this path, for them the sadhana is kathina. It is difficult, no doubt. But for the people who are prepared for this change, and the change is not just outside, more importantly and more difficult, it is to change our own mind, our own thoughts, our own beliefs, our own convictions, our own obsessions, our own habits. And this requires constant practice. And for them, this sadhana becomes easy. That for them, it becomes sukhena. So this is a person who is the adhikari for this sadhana, and for the adhikari person who does this sadhana with enthusiasm, with eager, with happiness, with joy, with patience, this sadhana becomes easy, becomes sukhena. He enjoys this sadhana. For the person who is anadhikari, who is lazy, who has a lot of fears, a lot of doubts, does not have shraddha, who has a lot of impatience, wants to achieve very quickly, this becomes a very, very difficult sadhana. So whether the question, again coming back, whether it is easy or difficult is based on the adhikaritva of the sadhaka rather than the mood swarupa of the sadhana. It is not dependent on the sadhana, but constant introspection is very important, and we have to keep removing whatever obstacles come on this path, and then the road will become easy for us. So what are these obstacles on the Gnana Patha or the knowledge path? It appears that it is very long, it is very difficult. So it has been explained by our Guruji in quite details of what are these obstacles on this Jnana Marg, which looks like difficult. So we need to understand the first and the foremost is the goal is not clear. A lot of people want sukha, want happiness, but we don't know what is that happiness, where I get it from, and whatever we try, we go around in the world looking for this happiness. But we all want nitya sukha, ever happiness, which is only, that is the form of moksha. So that is the first problem, the goal is not clear. If the goal is clear, what is the nature of that goal? That is not clear. What is moksha? We have heard very different aspects of different people telling us different things about moksha. Somebody says after death, you are not born again, that is moksha. That is not moksha. So moksha is mukti, it is freedom. It is freedom from all these worldly afflictions, miseries, pain, affections, all these unnecessary clinging that we have had. For this is freedom from all this. So, and it is nitya sukha, nitya ananda to understand our own self. So that is the second problem. The third problem is the sadhana. Sadhana means there are several ways and means to reach this goal. But which one I should use, how long, which all I should merge with my sadhana, that is not clear. So I've heard something about karma yoga, I start with some principles, then somebody says, no, bhakti is better, you use that bhakti. So I start with bhakti, then somebody says, no, go do meditation, dhyana is the way for getting this knowledge. So somebody goes into dhyana and is not able to understand or get to the essence or the purpose. So we keep changing our sadhana, that is not the way to reach the goal. We have to use all the sadhana that is available and use our own adhikaritva, what we are most suitable for, make it as your pradhan sadhana, karma, bhakti or dhyana. What is our adhikaritva, we have to understand, and that's how we have to use this. Impatience to reach the goal. In this spiritual paradigm, everything happens very slowly, we cannot have impatience. Absence of vairagya, dispassion, and we have a lot of mahatva buddhi in the world. We see everything as a reality in this world, and that's why there is a lot of asakti, moha, attachments all around. And we want so many things, we have so many desires, and all this does not allow us to get away and see things from a different perspective. So this is the absence of vairagya. A lot of expectation from others, because for which I have no control over the other people. I have only control over my own self, and I should do whatever best I can. I should not try to change others, because that is something I cannot achieve. So this is the cause of the problem. Others are laziness, alasa, pramada. What needs to be done, I don't do. I don't utilize my free time, spare time, waste my time. Delay whatever needs to be done, don't do what is necessary, and don't have discipline. For a few days, I work on that sadhana, but then I leave it. So importance of discipline in day-to-day life is very, very important. Making major out of minor things, it's our habit. We exaggerate, but we have to find acceptance in all situations and find a solution. We carry a lot of baggage from the past. A lot of people, whatever they have told us, said something to us, we keep it in our mind, and that keeps bothering us. But we must travel light and try and forget and forgive people on this journey. Habit of unnecessary worry. We can just get away from thinking and planning rather than worrying, because worrying does not help. Thinking and planning helps. So with this clear understanding, we should, priorities are not clear. We have many, many tasks to do in this life, in this world, and we have very little spare time. And then we think that if there is spare time, then I'll do some adhyatma, I'll read something, but then we don't find much spare time. So priorities have to be clear about what are the priorities of our worldly priorities, our spiritual priorities, and we should compartmentalize and plan our time accordingly. We do not assimilate the good values in our life. We hear a lot about good values, what should be done, but then it's our common problem that we are not able to assimilate and live in that way. So we have to merge both the spiritual and the worldly life. Acceptance and practice, constant practice is important. Making our work should be our sadhana, because we are all engrossed in karma, actions and activities all throughout our day. And that's why the best sadhana for most of us is karma yoga, to purify our inner mind to attain the jnana. Absence of faith in the God, and that creates a problem, because this is a new path for us. We don't know what is the goal, how to reach that. So we have to have some kind of a faith, feel the presence of God at all times, and have faith in God that God will show me the way and will find the right way. Similarly, faith in the Guru or a teacher and the scriptures, that this is the right path that they are showing, this is the right thing that they are telling me. And even if I don't understand it, I must have that faith that yes, this is the correct thing, this is the vision, the true vision that I must have, and I have to change myself to get that vision, whatever scriptures tell me. So that kind of faith in the scriptures is essential. Atma Shraddha, self-confidence in our own self, that I can do it, I will do it, and I must do it, that is essential. Benefit, advantages of adverse situations. Whenever adverse situations or obstacles come on our regular path, we should try to make the most out of it and learn something from it and go ahead. Too much expectation from our own self, having a very high own grand goal is not advisable. It's better to go step at a time, keep goals increasing gradually over a period of time. Other obstacles are too many expectations from others, absence of awareness and sukshmata. This is a path which is very sukshma. This is not a tattva is very sukshma. It cannot be seen by the naked eye. And that's why some kind of a sukshma thinking, subtle thinking is necessary on this path. If one has a very gross kind of a thinking, not able to think beyond whatever is seen, then it's very difficult to understand what is the essence of the scriptures. Absence of proper relationship with the Guru. We should be open with our Guru so that the Guru can guide us on our path. If there are obstacles, we can share with them and they can help us. Absence of inner leisure time daily for about 10 or 15 minutes, so that we can think what we need to do, where we are going, whether we are going on the right path or not, where we need to change. And my obsessions and my pride actually give me the most pain. And this leaving of this pride, our ego, is very difficult. It's very important on this path, and that is something that it's very difficult to leave. An absence of firm decision making by our buddhi, because the mana is so strong that it keeps rocking my buddhi or my intellect. At any cost, I must, even though I expect difficulties, I must get over the obstacles, and with a firm decision making, buddhi, shakti I should use and get over these obstacles. Now in the next 3 shlokas, the Atma Gnana Prakriya, what is the actual phala, and the understanding of the Mahavakyas, which is the essence of the Upanishads. And that's why Gitaji is considered to be the summary of the Upanishads. So the next 3 shlokas are very important. They tell us the meaning of Tattvamasi, Ayam Atma Brahma, which are the Mahavakyas, which denote that Jiva and Brahma are one. The oneness that we see in myself and the Paramatma. How can I see this? So Tat, Tvam, Masi are three pada. Tat, Tvam and Asi. Tat is the pada which denotes Paramatma. Tat pada means Paramatma, means the God, means the Almighty, means the essence. And that is the He. The Tvam pada is the Jivatma. Because when the Guruji is giving the Updesha, when he says Tvam means tu, means you Jivatma. But when we understand, when we do our thinking to understand, we say I, Aham. We don't say Tvam because we are the seeker. So we say Aham. Whereas the third pada is the Asi. Asi means the oneness between you and him. So Tat, Tvam, Asi. Tat is Paramatma, Tvam is you, and Asi is the oneness. Now in the 29th shloka, the Tvam pad artha is given. Tvam means the Jiva. And the 30th shloka, the Tat pad artha or the Paramatma is given. And the 31st is the Asi, the Aikya. The oneness between the Tat and the Tvam is described. So let us go. Now let us just understand what is the meaning of the Mahavakya and how can we see this oneness. So in Vedanta, there is it is said that there are two types of artha of a shabda. So there is something called Vachyartha and there is something called Lakshyartha. Vachyartha is the artha which is the literal meaning. Whenever we speak any word or we speak a sentence, whatever the first meaning that comes to our mind is called Vachyartha. But Lakshyartha is the implied meaning. It is not the true meaning of the word, but it is an implied meaning. Suppose we can say that that person is coming. You say that person's name is Anuj. Anuj is coming. We can say Anuj is coming. We know Anuj is coming. So that is the Vachyartha of the person's name. But if we say that suppose he is a very tall person or suppose he is a very obese person and we have given him a name that he is like a cylinder. So when we say cylinder is coming, it is an implied that Anuj is coming. So it is not, we don't say Anuj is coming. So that is something called, I'm just trying to give an example what is Lakshyartha and what is Vachyartha. So when we implied, the word implies the meaning. It doesn't give the literal meaning, but it gives the implied meaning, that is called Lakshyartha. Now let us understand Tvampada. Tvampada, as we said, you, but when we look at it, we consider Aham, I. When we say Vachyartha, literal meaning, who am I? That I believe, I feel that I am this body, I am this mind, I am this intellect, I am this soul, so body, mind and soul, this complex, I am this person, right? That is how I understand myself, as when I say, who am I? That is the Vachyartha. But when we go deep into it, we have to understand, when we do meditation, when we do all these processes, Vedanta, we understand that I am the awareness. I am not this body mind, but I am just that Shuddha Atma Chaitanya, the Atma. As we just mentioned about the Avasthatraya, Shakshi, Viveka, Atma, Anatma, Viveka, Shariratraya, Viveka, Jada Chetana, Viveka. With all this we go and understand that I am not this body mind, but I am the soul, I am the Atma, I am the Sakshi, I am the Chaitanya. Right? So the Lakshyartha is I am the Chaitanya. That is my true spirit. It is the implied meaning of this word. Now when we talk in the 30th shloka, Bhagavan talks about Paramatma, the God. Literal meaning, God means Ishvara. We may see them in different forms, in different shapes. Krishna, Ram, Rahim, and all different, Christ, a lot of different forms we see God. But when we talk about Lakshyartha, when we say Aikya, the Lakshyartha of God also, the existence, the Adhisthana of God, Bhagavana, Ishvara is also Chaitanya. Because that is the real Swarupa of Bhagavan. That's what Bhagavan says in Gita Ji at several places. Ajopi Sannavyaga Atma. He says, I am unborn, but I am still take Avatara Swarupa, come as a form on this life, on this world. But the true form of Bhagavan is also Chaitanya Swarupa. So if we consider, there cannot be oneness of the Jiva as a body, mind, soul and the Goda or the Ishvara in the form, in the shape. There cannot be oneness as a Vachyartha. But when we talk about Lakshyartha, there can be oneness between the Chaitanya of both. So that is how we have to understand that we are one with our Adhisthana Chaitanya, because that is one which connects everything, everybody, everything on this Brahmanda is one. So that is how we can understand the oneness. So 29 shloka, Sarva Bhutastamatmanam Sarva Bhutani Chatmani Ikshate Yoga Yuktatma Sarvatra Samadarshanaha. So how we can see this oneness in the many or all the differences? How can we see the oneness? Sarva Bhutastamatmanam. The first step is that one who knows that within all the beings, Sarva Bhuta. Bhuta means all these bodies or all these beings. Bhuta. They are called Bhuta because they have a Janma, they have an end, and they arise from the Pancha Mahabhuta. So because that's why they are called Bhuta. And within them, within all these Bhuta, within all these bodies, within all these, there is Atma. So once we have to see that Atma within all these bodies or all these Bhuta. Second is Sarva Bhutani Cha Atmani. That means that we see all the beings are in Atma. So this is a different vision. This is a vision. The first vision is that within all the Bhuta or all the bodies there is Atma, and here there is Atma everywhere. Within the Atma there are all these bodies. So that is the second vision. If we can see it this way, Yoga Yukta Atma Ikshyate. This is the vision of the Yukta Yogi. So Yukta Yogi who has gone through all this Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Dhyana, Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, and then his understanding becomes Adhisthana. He sees clearly Chaitanya, sees the Lakshyartha, he sees everything is one. And this is through his Chaitanya. That is what he understands, that I and the Atma of everyone is the same. That is the understanding. So Sarvatra Samadarshana, sees oneness everywhere. That is the vision of the Yukta Yogi. Yoga Yukta Atma Ikshate. So this is the vision of the Gnani, and this vision comes to this Gnani because of the Atma Anatma Viveka or the Drak Drashya Viveka. And he understands that Aham Atma, I am the Atma, I am the Shuddha Chaitanya, I am the Sakshi Chaitanya, I am the pure consciousness. I am not just this body-mind complex, but I am just this consciousness. So that is the first understanding. And then he feels that, this consciousness is not just in me, but this consciousness is within all the bodies that I see. Sarva Bhutastam Atmanam. Within all these bodies, there is this same consciousness, same Atma, the same Chaitanya is there. So that is the second step. And then he feels that, okay, this same consciousness is everywhere. It is Sarva Vyapaka Chaitanya. It is not just in my body, but in others' body, but it is everywhere. And then he gets this vision that Sarva Bhutani Cha Atmani. So within all this consciousness is everything. Within them all the bodies come and go. The bodies come, Janma, Mrityu, all this happens about all these Sarva Bhuta, these bodies or all these beings or all these yonis or species, everything happens. But Atma is there, it is Najayate Namriyate. It is not ever born, never dies, it is there. So within these, all these Bhutas, they come and go. So that is the final understanding. So Aham Chaitanya becomes Sarva Vyapak Chaitanya, and then he understands that I am the eternal consciousness. I am Aham Atma Brahma. This is the Mahavakya or the essence of the understanding of the Upanishads. So in Vedanta, this understanding is given by this example of Ghata, Ghatakash and Mahakash. It's a very common example given in Vedanta. So within, Mahakash is the big space within which there are lots of pots, Ghata. And within all the Ghat, inside there is also space. And this space within the pot is called the Ghatakash. The space outside the pot is called the Mahakash. Now, just take it as a corollary or a, kind of a, for the understanding, it's an allegory to our understanding of the body and Atma, Anatma. Chaitanya in the body, as when we say that I am, I have a soul inside my body, or I am the life, I am Sakshi Chaitanya, I am the soul. So that means that the Akash is in the Ghat, that is the Ghatakash. So that is the Ghata, is my body, and then there is a Akash or some space or that Atma which is there in the Ghata, which is the Ghatakash. That is just for the sake of understanding. And then we understand that all these bodies, and then we try and understand that there is a Ghata in the Akash, but similarly there is a Ghat outside the Akash, which is the Mahakash. And within the Ghatakash and the Mahakash, there is no difference. It's the same space that is pervading inside as well as outside. There is no two different spaces. And that's how we get this understanding that all the bodies are in this Chaitanya, in this Ghata. So all these Ghata are in the Akash, which is the Mahakasha. So this is the understanding Sarva Bhutastha Cha Atmani. And then we understand that this Chaitanya, this Mahakash is Sarva Vyapaka. It is inside the Ghata, it is outside the Ghata, it is the same space, there is no difference. And this is a Mahakasha, it is a Sarva Vyapaka Chaitanya. So this is the corollary that is given to understand how we can understand that, all these Ghata are within the Akasha or the Mahakasha. So initially we have to see that there is an Atma within Sukshma, that is Sakshi Chaitanya. Then we have to understand that this Atma is not there in just me, but in everyone, in all the Ghata, there is this Akasha, Ghatakasha. Then we have to understand that the Ghatakasha is not just limited by this body, it is inside and outside both. It is Sarva Vyapaka, it is everywhere. And then we have to understand that it is just this Sarva Vyapaka Chaitanya that is existent. Everything else, all these Ghatas, they come in and they go. And this is how we have to keep gradually increasing our understanding. Sarvatra Samadarshana. We see all oneness in all the differences. Aham becomes a Sarva Vyapaka Chaitanya, which is the limitless Chaitanya. And Guru Maharaj says that this is the truth that our scriptures tell us, our Vedanta, our Upanishads tell us. This is no Kalpana, this is not an imagination. And this is the essence of the Upanishads, and it is the experience of the Mahapurusha. So many of the Mahapurushas, Jnanis, wise people have attained this state which Bhagavan Krishna gives in this Gitaji, the wise state which needs to be attained, which is the ultimate goal that he shows. And they have this Sarvatra Samadarshana, they see one in the many. And Bhakta will see God everywhere because his devotion is on the God. And Gnani, or a person who has Yukta, Yogi, Sakshat, he will feel this Aparoksha Chaitanya everywhere. He will feel that Atma everywhere. And for them, the vision happens because their vision is not on the Karya. Karya is the Nama Rupa, it is the effect. But their vision is on the Karana, which is the cause, which is the Brahma, which is from which everything comes. So when the vision is on the Karana, on the cause, then one sees the oneness in everything and does not see the differences in the Nama Rupa. Yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mai pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami sachame na pranashyati. In the 30th shloka, this oneness between Atma and Paramatma, Jiva and Brahma is given. Bhagavan says that Yo mam pashyati sarvatra, who sees me everywhere. So in the 29th shloka, he says one who sees Atma everywhere. Here he says who sees me everywhere. Sarvam cha mai pashyati, who sees everything within me. So that is the another vision. And that's why these shlokas, both these shlokas clearly mention that, the Atma and the Paramatma is one and the same. There is no difference. Because what he says, Atma in the 29th shloka, in the 30th shloka, he says about Paramatma or God itself, himself. He says, Tasyaham na pranashyami, always sees me. Pranashyami literally means, Vachyartha is not destroyed. But the literal meaning or the actual meaning here is that he never loses my vision. He always sees me. He never feels away from me. That is what he means. And Sachamena Pranashyati, I also feel very close to him. I also never lose track of him, never lose, never have any viyoga, never go away from him. I always am with him all the time. And that is what God says in this. So Sarva Vyapaka Bhagavana or Chaitanya is all one and the same. Different people feel this differently. This is the ultimate climax of Bhakti, where they see God everywhere. This is the ultimate climax of Vedanta, when they see Atma or Chaitanya everywhere. And this is the ultimate goal for any spiritual aspirant, when they would see oneness in all these many. In the 31st shloka, it says, Sarva Bhuta Stitam Yomam Bhajatyekatva Mastitaha Sarvatha Vartamanopi Sayogi Mai Vartate. So he says, this wise person, Sarva Bhuta Stitam Yomam, who sees me in all the beings, he prays by being one with me. By being one with me, he prays, and He says this enlightened or wise person, उनकी बात जो कर रहे हैं, he says सर्वथा वर्तमानोपि, wherever he lives, wherever he or she lives, they mai vartate, they live within me, they live in me, they are with me all the time. They don't have any rules. Wherever they are free, they have freedom, and their expression of the freedom may be different for different jnanis, different people. Some may be Avdhuta Koti, some may be Acharya Koti, some may have Balavat, some may be like a children innocent, some may be Jadvat, they are very, very mood, or they don't do any activity from outside. Some may be Unmatta, maybe something like a crazy. So all these expressions can be different, but the Gnana that they have is the same, and the Gnanis can have different expressions, they live differently on this world. So that is what Ekatva Gnan Bhagavan talked about. And finally, in this last shloka, we would like to discuss that if this Gnani Purush, the question that can come is, if this Gnani Purush is Swadhin, is completely free, no rules apply to him, then can he create any problems with the nature cycle, with the nature? Can he create any harm to the nature? Can he feel the dukkha, sukha? How does he understand? That is what the shloka says. Atmaupamyena sarvatra samam pashyati yorjuna sukham va yadi va dukkham sayogi paramo mataha. So those wise are extremely compassionate. This is what is the essence of the shloka. But how? What is their understanding? Atmaupamyena sarvatra samam pashyati. They see their own self in everyone. This is the vision, because a wise person, they feel the oneness, and that's why due to this oneness, they feel that if I'm in that place, how would I feel? That is how their feeling is, that is how they work, and that's why sukham va yadi va dukkham, they feel the pain or the pleasure of others. And here the meaning is not that they would remain the same. Till so far he says we would remain samatva even if there is a sukha or dukkha. But that is not the meaning here. The meaning here is that when others have pain or pleasure, the wise person, when he knows about this, he would feel that because he feels the part of the other self. And that's why they are able to forgive others for their mistakes. The example given here is that in our body we have a ekatva bhavana for all our organs, anga, everything. So say for example, we have a tongue bite. The teeth bites the tongue. We don't punish the teeth because teeth is also ours, the tongue is also ours. So similarly, we forgive them. Similarly, the wise people forgives the others when others make mistakes. They believe that, okay, he is also the same as I, and why should I, be angry with that person? So that's how they forgive others for their mistakes. Sayogi paramo mataha. Such a yogi is greatest in my opinion, he says. Because the dharma, samanya dharma that is given in Mahabharata also is to do others, to do to others what you would like others to do to you. This is the samanya dharma. Don't do something to others which you don't want others to do to you. So that is something. And don't do to others what we don't like others to do to us. Suppose I don't like that others become angry on me, then I should not become angry on the others. If I want that others should be nice to me, they should talk politely, be humble, give me respect, then I should do the same thing to everyone. So that is the samanya dharma, definition of the dharma which is given in Mahabharata, that this is what is the samanya dharma for everyone. So with this we come to the end of this session. In the next session, it starts with Arjuna's question. It's a beautiful question, which is a question for all of us sadhakas. On behalf of all of us, Arjuna asked this question to the Lord, that you have shown us this sadhana, this dhyana sadhana, how we have to control our mind, focus our mind, atma sanstam manah krutva, how we have to focus on the atma, don't think of anything else from outside. But Arjuna says, Bhagwan, how is this possible? That etasyaham na pashyami, I can't see that it is possible because chanchalatvat sthitam stiram, this mana is very chanchala. Man is so unsteady, it is so agile, it is so chanchala. I don't see that this sthiti can be reached, he says. And he says, chanchalami mana Krishna pramati balavardhurdam. It is very, very powerful. It is very balwan. Tasyaham nigraham manye. I cannot know how I can control this mind. Vayorivasu dushkaram. It is so difficult. It is like controlling the wind, he says. And Bhagavan gives a very beautiful answer. He says, Asanshayam mahabaho. Oh Arjuna, you are a great warrior. I understand, I agree, I accept. that mano durnigraham chalam. It is very difficult to control the mana. But he shows two solutions also. Even after accepting, he shows in the two solutions how we can control the mind. He says, Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha gruhyate. He shows two solutions. One is abhyasa, constant practice, kaunteya. And second, he says, vairagya. Vairagya is, these are the only ways you can control your mind. We'll go into more details. It's a very beautiful last part. There is another question that Arjuna comes up with. What is the gati of the person who becomes yoga brashta? And Lord talks about it and gives a lot of solace to all of us seekers. How yoga brashta, whatever we do on this path, nothing goes in vain. We all accumulate all the sanskaras and our sadhana continues. It is janmo janma ki sadhana, and which does not go in ever in vain. Thank you all very much. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Para Brahma Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.